Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode. Today, I want to talk about one of my favorite shifts that I've ever made. I love helping my clients make this shift too. And what made me think of this actually was I had a one on one movement assessment session with one of my coaches. And she said something that just put into words what I've been wanting to say to you, but she said it in such a beautiful way. And I want to share that with you so you can start to see in your life where you can make this shift yourself. Now, context. If you've already been listening to this series, the 2010 series, where for these 20 weeks, I'm talking about my 20 years of experience, 10 years struggling with food and binge eating and emotional eating, and then 10 years in peace and freedom and growth. And in this time, one of the mantras that you've heard me say many times is where your attention goes, your energy flows. So we want to be very specific and intentional where we place our attention, where we place our focus. Because if I say I don't want to be obsessed with weight anymore, but I'm constantly placing my focus on how much do I weigh and let me get on the scale and I need to lose weight by this time, what am I actually reinforcing? More weight obsession, right? If I don't want to be thinking about binges anymore, yet all of my internal dialogue is, oh, I hope I don't binge tonight. And oh, I hope I can make it my third day without a binge. Or, oh, I hope this doesn't cause a binge. Or I shouldn't eat that because I don't want to trigger a binge. Where is all my consciousness? Binges. So we end up attracting more of where our focus is. So if we want our focus to no longer be around binges and weight because we want to become the person who doesn't even need to think about these things, that can't be where our focus stays. Because think about it. The people who, you might admire most, like those quote unquote normal eaters who can just sit there in front of a dessert, have a few bites and somehow be completely satisfied and then not think about it anymore, right? Are they obsessing over weight? No. Are they thinking about, oh, will this cause a binge? No. So if we want to actually become more of that kind of person, we can't think the way that we've been thinking. We have to think outside of the box. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. So if we want to build a relationship with food that feels free, where it embodies freedom, peace, ease, nourishment, effortlessness, we need to start placing our focus in order to cultivate these things. Now, here's where I want to get into what happened to me today. So, she was asking me as we were starting the assessment, she asked me some of the things that I've done in the past. And why do you think those things haven't worked? And I told her I know exactly why they didn't work. First of all, I've tried everything, like every conventional thing or even unconventional thing. I've tried so many things over the last 10 years. I said the reason why it didn't work is because I was always focused around fixing myself, getting rid of the problem. So I was always very problem focused. And in doing that, I was not focused on what I actually wanted to create and build the person who I wanted to be, who wouldn't even have that problem in the first place. For example, if I was going to physical therapy, I'd say, oh, because I need to get rid of this hip pain, right? Instead of building such a strong mobile body that wouldn't even have hip pain to begin with. And the quote that she said, and I wrote this down, let me read it to you because I love this. She said, here, we're not rehabilitating who you were, right? You're looking at this broken version of yourself, trying to rehabilitate that. She goes, we're not rehabilitating who you were. We are habilitating who you're becoming. I'm just going to repeat that. I love this. And then we'll get into a little more. We're not rehabilitating who you were. We are habilitating who you're becoming. She said, we're coming from expansion, not from lack. Do you see how different that energy is? It's empowering. You're creating something, you're building something. And this is, by the way, why you have not heard me use the word recovery to describe this process. Like people will say, oh, yeah, I'm in my eating disorder recovery. This is part of my recovery journey. It's my recovery process. You will not hear me use the word recovery. Can you guess why? Because in the approach that works best, you are not trying to recover from who you were. You are actively creating the person you're becoming. And as you actively create that person you're becoming, what naturally happens? You recover from who you were. Same thing with the injury, right? As I'm focusing on habilitating the person I want to be, as I'm habilitating the body I want to have, what naturally happens? I rehabilitate the injuries. So it's a side effect. I'm not saying the recovery doesn't happen. I'm saying the recovery is not the focus. The recovery is just a side effect of what we're focusing on now. You have a clear vision now of who you want to be, how you want to live, how you want your own mind and body to interact with food. We're going to actively build that. And as we do, all the pieces that no longer fit into that version of you are going to naturally fall away. So you will recover, but that's not where our focus is. You get what I'm saying? It's a complete perspective shift that makes an enormous difference. Why? Because where your attention goes, your energy flows. All of your energy is going in that direction now. Whereas if you have this mindset, oh, I'm recovering from who I was and all my old habits and all my old ways of being and all my old patterns, where's your energy? All of your old ways of being, all of your old patterns. Oh, and you heard my mom in the last episode. If you haven't listened to that episode, definitely listen to my mom. She's the best. But my mom went through my program 7 years ago. So I actually coached my mom, which one of the things when I was working with her 7 years ago, she was still very much in that analyzing and overthinking. And one of the things that kind of goes along with that is we always want to know why. Why is it that I am the way I am? What happened in my childhood that led me to behave this way or to think this way? And I'm not minimizing the value of reflection. I believe reflection is a very important part of life because if we don't reflect, we can't assess where we even want to go. But when we overanalyze and we overthink and get sucked into that rabbit hole of why do I have this pattern and what specific trauma happened in my childhood, at that point, you're no longer focusing on where you want to go or what changes you're actually making. Like, I don't know why I have these movement imbalances or what happened in my childhood that led to this exact injury or this hip rotation or whatever. All I need to know is where I want to go now and then start bringing in the habits and the movements that are going to create that body. So when I was coaching my mom, a lot of times she would pause and she'd say, why is it that I do that? Why is it? And I'd say, Mom, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. Let's focus on what you're creating now and what it takes for that. And my coach today, when she was saying, what's important for you to know isn't the how. I say this to my clients too. You don't worry about the how. I'm worrying about the how. You don't have to think about the how. You focus on what it is that you want, and who you want to be as you're getting there. So what does that mean? So for example, when I'm going through the classes at the gym, if we're doing something hard, what I always say to myself is, I love this. And sometimes I'll just yell out if we're like in the middle of a bunch of glute bridges or something, and I'll just yell out, I love this. Because I'm training myself to be the person who's enjoying the process, who's having fun with the process, who's embracing the process. I don't want to be the person who's whining, who's complaining, who's being dragged along, who's dreading everything. I'm bringing a positive attitude because that's the person I want to be as I'm going through this process. So that's what I'm focusing on. What I want, who I want to be as I'm getting there. I'm outsourcing the how. because I need the guidance, and soon I'll be able to guide more of my own how. But for now, I need the guidance. This is where mentorship really comes in handy. Someone who has a strategy, who knows how to redirect you when you get off course, that's very valuable. So it's about knowing what it is that you want. Then there's the how, but there's also the who you want to be as you get there. But all of this is coming from the place of expansion, not lack. And that's the point I really want to drive home for you today, because it's not about, I need to fix the old me. I'm in recovery now. No, no, no. You are getting clear on the version of you that you want to become, clear on the relationship that you want to have with food beyond your wildest dreams. Like, think big. And she was even saying that at the gym too, because I said to her the other day, I said, how should I prepare for our one-on-one session? And she goes, I want you to start thinking about what it is that you really want beyond what you think is even possible. Like, wildest imagination, what would you dream of being able to do? And so I'm coming from this open place now of expansion, not, oh, I have this really tight shoulder and my ankle mobility. Oh, and I can't put weight on my wrist and all this stuff. Like, all these things are considered, of course, but that's not the focus. The focus isn't, oh, I have to get rid of my wrist pain. The focus is, what is it that I'm building? Who is the person I'm becoming? How do I want to be as I get there? This is one of my favorite shifts that I've ever made. It's like she said, we're not rehabilitating who you were. We're habilitating the person you're becoming. Had I not made this shift, I don't think the other shifts would have even had a foundation to stand on. Like, we've got many weeks left where I'm going to be teaching you all these kinds of internal shifts. This is the core. And if you become my client in the next month or so, I announced last week that the new normal is now open. So if you want to join, please do. I would love to be able to support you more closely. If you work with me, you are going to see me bring you back here time after time after time. Why? Because your mind is already trained in the opposite. Your mind is ingrained in the opposite. Your mind for years has been thinking, oh, I got to fix this problem. I got to stop the binge. I got to avoid the trigger. I got to avoid this. I got to avoid that. That is how your mind has been working in overdrive for years. You've been trying to get rid of the problem, to avoid the binges, to fight the cravings. You've been focused in fear and scarcity, not expansion, not abundance. So we need to completely change the focus, where most of your attention is no longer on the past. No, no. You are focused on the person you are becoming, and more each day becoming that person. Your peace with food increases because you're focused on building peace with food. It sounds so obvious, but if we're just focusing on avoiding a binge or going another day without a binge, how is that going to bring peace with food? If anything, that brought me stress with food. Like, I was perpetually in a state of fighting, constantly fighting myself, constantly fearing cravings. I couldn't even be alone at home with a full refrigerator because I was terrified of what I would do. Or I would be so excited about it because finally I'm home and I can eat whatever I want in private. Like, it was all reactionary. It was all scarcity. It was all fear. It's all from lack. It's from lack. We need to come from a place of expansion, from empowerment, from abundance, creation. This is what's going to be the driver behind your deepest changes. We don't get rid of binges by focusing harder on getting rid of binges. If that worked, it would have worked. It would have worked 100 times by now. It doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, we have to let it go. But we also need to know where we're going next. Because if we just let something go and then we're in a void, what do we do when we're in a void? When we don't have a strategy or a way to move forward that's different, what do? we autopilot right back to our old behaviors. So we need to have a clear focus where your attention goes, your energy flows. And you might have heard me mention this in the episode where I was talking about weight, how I lost the weight and kept it off for 10 years, that a lot of people who might have a similar philosophy to me or intuitive eating or something along those lines, they'll say something like, don't focus on weight anymore. Just don't think about weight. And you're just like, well, how the heck am I supposed to just not think about weight? And you're right. Of course, that's the first thing you're going to think of. And if you don't have a clear focus or a clear strategy that you're constantly coming back to, what's going to happen? There's going to be a void. And what's going to fill the void? The exact autopilot that you've been in all this time. You're not going to be able to move on from the old way of thinking. I gave the analogy of climbing a ladder. If we want to get to something higher, we cannot keep clinging to the bottom rung. But also, by the same token, we're not going to feel safe even to let go of that bottom rung until we have something higher to grab onto. Okay. That's why when people say, oh, just don't think about weight, we don't feel safe to do that. If someone says, oh, don't count your binge free days, don't think about binges, blah, blah, blah. We don't feel safe to do that. We need to cling to the bottom rung. We need to cling to the diets. We need to cling to the food rules. We need to cling to the scale. Why? Because we don't feel confidence that if we grab onto that top rung, that it's going to support us. So we stay clinging to the bottom rung. But once we know that top rung can support us, like if we have a strategy we can rely on, a mentor who can guide us, all of these things that help us feel that confidence to grab onto something higher, then we feel safe to let go. And that's where we can actually start climbing higher. You get me? You will be amazed at how fast progress comes. And not only how fast progress comes, but how it actually feels effortless when it does. And that's not to say you're not putting in effort, because you are. But the outcome appears to be effortless because of the effort you've been putting in other places. So just to give you an example of that before I go, I'll give you two examples actually. So let's say I want to learn a new movement. I want to learn a new skill, but it's a hard skill. So what do? I go to my trainer and she breaks down little exercises that are going to help me build the strength and mobility in the areas that I need. So I'm just going to focus on these little exercises, right? Now, one day, I'm just going to casually try the skill without thinking about it. And it's just going to happen. What the heck? How did this just happen? Because it's not that I didn't put in effort, but my effort wasn't there. Where was it? It was undoing all of those little exercises that gave me what I needed to be able to do that skill. And that's why when my clients, and you'll see this when you join the new normal, when you first have the experience of forgetting that a food is in the house, or like you'll drive past this place that you always used to stop in, or debate if I should stop and buy food and get stuff for the way home, you'll just effortlessly forget that food was in the house, or you'll just effortlessly drive past that place and not even realize you did it without thinking until you got home. And you'll look at it and you'll say, wow, that was so effortless. How did that happen? It's not that you didn't make effort, but you did the exercises and the practices that gave you the peace with food, that gave you the freedom of your mind. So that way, by the time that thing happened, it felt effortless. That's what's so cool about this work. But that's what's also exactly what's wrong with the eating disorder industry, the weight loss industry, is it's so lack focused. It's so entrenched in scarcity and lack and fear and trying to move away from, instead of what am I creating? Who am I becoming? And becoming the person who these issues wouldn't even be a problem for in the first place. That's what helps the problems fall away and feel like they're falling away effortlessly, because you're not actively working on that or necessarily focusing on that, but you're creating the outcome that would make it inevitable that those things would fall away, right? And I'll tell you, just from now having the personal experience and wisdom from having done it both paths, in multiple areas of my life, whether it was scarcity focused and then shifting to abundance, or being focused on rehabilitation versus habilitation of the person I become. It's so much more fun. It's so much more empowering to come at this from a place of expansion, from a place of creation. It's so much more exciting, encouraging. Whereas when you're just focused on all the time what it is that you don't want and what you want to get rid of, and that you constantly feel like you're recovering, like, ugh, it is exhausting, it is a drain, and it is a drag. That's another reason why this is one of my favorite shifts, because it actually makes the process of change more fun. And change happens best when change feels good. you know, it's not to say that there isn't some pain along the way or challenge along the way. There is, but it's the kind of pain and challenge that brings satisfaction. Like when you do something hard and you feel really good after, you feel that satisfaction. That's a very different kind of energy, because that's also coming from expansion. So anyway, if I haven't hammered this shift in enough, let me know, because this is the foundation. This is the foundation. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. So with that being said, thank you so much for being here. If you're interested in joining the new normal and you haven't read the information yet, it's now on my website, because enrollment is now officially open. So you can go to katiepapo.com/programs. You'll see the new normal and you can read all the details. You'll see I'm a very detail-oriented person, but if you have any questions, you're always most welcome to reach out to me directly, and I'll be very happy to serve you and excited to work with you. So with that, I'm excited to see you on the next episode in a couple days, and I'll talk to you very soon. Bye.